Booth upped the ante. He'd personally assassinate Lincoln and have a new accomplice, Lewis Payne, assassinate Secretary of State William Seward. George Atzerodt would murder the Vice President, Andrew Johnson.
Booth was not the tool of anybody. He was by far the most intelligent and independent-minded of that group, and they were followers of Booth rather than him being the tool of some other organization.
On Friday evening, Good Friday, April 14th, 1865, Lincoln attended the theater to see the play Our American Cousin. John Wilkes Booth planned the assassination in that theater, not just because he wanted the notoriety that he knew would accompany it, but because as one of the most famous actors in America, he had unlimited access to the theater. So he was able to come and go as he wished, which meant that he could walk up a pair of narrow stairs to the president's box, open the door, and shoot the president.
President and Mrs. Lincoln and their guests, a Major Rathbone and his fiancée, seated themselves in a bunting-draped box. 4 years of war had aged Lincoln terribly, and here was a moment of diversion.
John Wilkes Booth knew the play, Our American Cousin, very well. He knew that a comic character would get a big laugh at a particular point in the play, and that would be an ideal cover for the assassination. Lincoln's private bodyguard, John Parker, had grown bored with the play, and he'd wandered off to a saloon. And this is incredible, considering the fact that Lincoln received 80 written death threats in just that week alone.
Amidst guffaws and applause, Booth entered the box. In his right hand was a derringer loaded with a 7/16 lead ball. Booth aimed the tiny pistol at the back of Lincoln's head and fired. The ball entered Lincoln's head behind his left ear, plowed through his brain, and flattened itself against his right eye.
Major Rathbone, in the booth with Lincoln, rises to defend the president and to go after Booth, and Booth slashes his left arm to the bone with a dagger.
Booth managed to break free and vault over the box railing. Catching his foot on the box bunting, he landed on the stage with a thud, breaking his left leg above the ankle. Ever the actor, Booth brandished his dagger and shouted to a stunned audience, "Sic semper tyrannis," then limped into the wings, the exhilaration of assassination overcoming the excruciation of a broken limb.
It was the motto of Virginia that he yelled out, "Sic semper tyrannis," death to tyrants. The president was carried across the street to a boarding house and laid on a bed. He was too tall for the bed, and so he had to be laid diagonally across the bed. Meanwhile, Lewis Payne gained access to Secretary Seward's home. He got inside, he stabbed Seward repeatedly. He was cornered, but he broke free, ran to the street, yelling, "I'm mad, I'm mad."
George Atzerodt, would-be assassin of Vice President Johnson, threw away his knife and went on a saloon binge.
At 7:22 a.m. on April 15th, 1865, President Lincoln stopped breathing. It was the first time in 4 years, probably, that a peaceful expression crossed his face.
Secretary of War Stanton's words, "Now he belongs to the ages," were the beginning of the Lincoln legend. The pursuit of his murderer began. The hysteria in the theater after the assassination had covered John Wilkes Booth's scramble to a waiting horse.
Booth made good his escape, got across the river and got into the Virginia countryside, but with a broken leg and fever and terrible weather, it soon became impossible for him to travel farther.
Booth was finally run down and surrounded by troops in a tobacco barn in Virginia. The barn was set afire to flush him out, and he was fatally shot in the neck by a soldier who had been a prisoner in the Confederate hell camp at Andersonville. He died in agony hours later. His last words were, "Useless, useless." Payne, Atzerodt, and Herold were mass hanged in Washington, D.C. after trial and conviction. With them died Mary Surratt, sister of John, and the possibly innocent keeper of the boarding house where the assassins met. Thus ended the only proven conspiracy in the history of American presidential assassination.